Let me ask you this. Do you ever plan on cheating on me?
Absolutely not, no.
Do you ever plan on divorcing me?
No.
Okay, well, this right here doesn't matter. All this means is that if you go back on your word or what you just said to me, that's the only reason why this right here will take an effect.
Oh guys, does Bilal think everybody's stupid? I think he must do. It's Ebird Online, and it's about that time. It's time to analyse once again all of the ridiculous outpourings of Bilal. Yes, that's right, it's Bilal and Shaeeda, 90 Day Fiance, Season 9. And finally, now we're more aware of the contents of the prenuptial agreement, I'm going to give you my breakdown on the shenanigans in this relationship. Guys, I didn't think I could find a more delusional and overly confident character than Bilal. But oh how wrong I was. Enter Shaeeda, Bilal's ex. And guys, just so you know, throughout this review I'm going to be referring to her as Bilal's ex, only because her name is so similar to Shaeeda's. And I don't want us all to get completely mixed up. And before any of you get into my comments, this is not done disrespectfully. There's no disrespect regarding her name, although I can't quite give the same assurance regarding the rest of my commentary. Guys, before I forget, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and make Ebird a happy Ebird. Also, smash the like button if you enjoy my content. Thanks guys. And so without further ado, I give you Bilal and Shaeeda. So finally, we have more details as to exactly what's on this prenup. And as I suspected, Bilal has covered his own ass very thoroughly and left Shaeeda out to dry. Quelle surprise. So Bilal is absolutely working my last nerve. He's behaving like a spoilt child over this prenup. He simply can't understand why Shaeeda would want to 1. Read a paper copy of it and not just a copy on his mobile phone, and 2. Look over it thoroughly to protect her own interests. And also we can tell by his very demeanour that he's very anti her taking it to a lawyer. He literally can't believe that she wants a lawyer to look over the prenup so she can protect her best interests in exactly the same way that Bilal has protected his. It's sheer madness. Who does she think she is? And so last week we see Bilal sulking in front of his kids, quite simply because Shaeeda has refused thus far to just sign the prenup and sign her rights away. And Bilal says he's melancholy and doesn't feel like himself because they have a few issues.
I'm feeling just not like myself. I don't feel like we're vibing. We're on that level. I mean, we have some pretty big issues like prenup and baby talk. You know, it's just.
Really, Bilal? If all of this has given you so much stress, you should have dealt with these issues before you paid for Shaeeda to come over from Trinidad on the K1 visa. Both issues should have been raised. Of course, initially, Shaeeda said that she didn't want kids. But a few months into your conversation, she admitted that she actually did. You gave her the silent treatment on this. And if you didn't want to have them, you should have just said, actually no, and let's just finish the relationship now. By the same token, you raised the idea of the prenup over a year ago, and Shaeeda told you in no uncertain terms, I won't sign a prenup. Now, I'm not debating whether that was reasonable or not, but you should have known that when you did bring it up 30 days into her being in the US, there'd naturally be a problem. But of course, now you're trying to give us boo-hoo-hoo. All these things have suddenly landed on me. These things, Bilal, are of your own making. You knew where Shaeeda stood. She just didn't know where you stood. But Shaeeda, as ever, is trying to pull you out of your grump and your mood. And she says, come on, you and the kids, come outside and let's do yoga. And they all have a lovely family yoga session together. Oh, Shaeeda, it's going to take a lot more than stretching the abductor longus to bring a smile back to Bilal's ugly mug. And guys, he really does make me laugh, because whenever he doesn't get his own way, he's actually like a child. In fact, worse than a child. A child will say, I'm not allowed to have an ice cream. Oh my God, the world's ending. So at least with a child, you know exactly what the problem is. With Bilal, he'll carry on his moody moods for days and days, without actually explicitly saying what it is he's upset about. He's just, ooh, out of sorts. It's literally pathetic. So next time we catch up with Shaeeda, she's busy waiting for her first visit from Bilal's ex-wife, and unbelievably she tells us the only time she's ever met her is that day when Bilal was moody yet again, when they went to the Islamic Centre that Friday. And right from the moment this bespectacled chump walked in the house, you could see she was looking for trouble. So guys, she came in very stern, and she sat at the kitchen table with Shaeeda. She said, I want the best for my kids. and I want them to be around positive people. Fair enough. I take it from that you're going to keep them away from Bilal then. He's far from positive. But I found this whole thing quite surprising because it doesn't necessitate a visit to let Shaeeda know this, but okay, if you like it, I love it. But then Shaeeda, who initially was all smiles, lets production know she knew something was wrong when Bilal's ex-wife refused to make eye contact with her.
I am still thinking positive. I say probably she's nervous, but she seemed to come in with an attitude. I am smiling like a Cheshire cat. She's not making eye contact, so I knew something was wrong.
And guys, I've got to say, I always find it very amusing when someone's trying to give it the large one, but daren't look at you. I say amusing, it's downright laughable. And then Bilal's ex said, I haven't done my research on you yet. And Shaeeda said, well, don't worry, I'm from a strict Islamic background. I have a very large family with many brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews. And I also get on really well with your children. And Bilal's ex went, and she dismissed all of that information summarily. And she went on to say, it may not be my place. You can stop there, Bilal's ex. It may not be my place. I 100% agree. It's definitely your concern, but Bilal should be delivering all this information instead of being a weak little P-word. And Bilal's ex continued, but I heard that there's some talk about a prenup. And then she quite rightly explained, I want to protect my kid's generational wealth. And I want to know that you're not just here for what he has. And guys, it was at this point I wanted to high-five Shaeeda. She said, well, don't worry about me. I'm very well known in my community. I had my own business. You can find me on the internet. It might have been quicker and easier to say, Google me, bitch. But she got her point across. Consider I'm nothing at your peril. And as you know, I've previously snooped on Shaeeda's Instagram. And she's travelled overseas extensively. She has a degree. She had a thriving yoga business, receiving many awards, and she had quite the internet presence, all before she met Bilal. And to me, it's really very rude to assume that somebody is of no merit just because they're from, I don't know, Trinidad or a poorer country. If you're going to try and read someone the riot act, you should at least have done your research first. Also, why are you doing Bilal's bidding for him? Let Bilal sort this issue out. It's very interesting to me that she hasn't bothered to have a sit down with Shaeeda at any point, but now money's involved. Suddenly she wants to rock up giving it Katniss Everdeen. She came with both attitude and assumptions. It would seem that she and Bilal are more suited than I thought. Chernobyl has less toxicity than Bilal's ex-wife. But guys, Shaeeda had her handled. She let her know she was very well known in her community and that she wasn't some little girl that Bilal picked up from the roadside via social media. And she finished off by saying, yeah, it's a conversation that Bilal and I need to have, and I haven't decided what I'm going to do as yet. She really did give it to her both barrels, and I know for a fact Bilal's ex-wife was somewhat dismayed. I think she expected Shaeeda to be weak and shy and retiring. Wrong! And so, in a desperate attempt to save face, here's what she said.
I think I ruffled her feathers a little bit, but...
You didn't do nearly as much as you thought you did. And she further continued that I didn't come here to play games. That's as may be, but what did you achieve? Literally nothing. Nada. Not a thing. Niet. Nimich. Rien. Jack shit. Oh, Bilal's ex, I'd be embarrassed to be you. I really would. Oh dear. But just to ram the point home, Shaeeda finished off with the following.
Are you good?
I mean, it is what it is, I guess, at this point.
And I have to say, that was a damn move by Shaeeda, like, are we good? Where's your vim, Bilal's ex? Where's your vim now? Ooh, it seems to have deserted her. In fact, it was never ever there. And next time we have the misfortune to stumble upon Bilal. He and Shaeeda are going for a picnic. Now Bilal at all times is intentionally vague and deliberately obtuse. But sometimes, in fact with increasing regularity now, he deviates to flat out lies by omission. And so we see Shaeeda and she's trying to, I don't know, pep talk herself up. And she once again utters the bullshit she always utters, that Bilal has surprised me. He's so super caring and he's a super romantic individual. Oh Shaeeda, he's an annoying individual, that's for sure. And apparently he's taken her on a surprise picnic. He lays a sheet on the ground, opens a few pre-packaged sandwiches and some sparkling peach juice. Guys, who said romance is dead? And when they sit down, Shaeeda decides to talk to Bilal about the day that his ex just popped up for a chat. And Shaeeda lets him know that she came round to the house. And she said she came to bully and intimidate me in my own home. And she said when I looked into her eyes, she was fierce and she was mad. And then she went on to talk to me about our prenup. And Bilal said, oh wow, I'm quite surprised that she talked to you about this. Bilal, stop lying. No, you're not. You asked her to talk to her about it. Do you think that we're stupid? She didn't just do this shit off her own back. You must have told her that Shaeeda was reluctant to sign it. Otherwise she would have had no knowledge of it. And I don't believe for a second she would have turned up with all that vim and all that negative energy if you'd have just casually mentioned it to her. And Shaeeda said I was really upset by it all. And Bilal did what he does best. And he said, yeah, really? I'm very surprised at that, because she's only ever had very good things to say about you. And Shaeeda said she came with all this attitude and I need to protect my kids. And Bilal just nodded sagely and said, yeah, well, the prenup really is between just you and I. But what you've got to understand is a marriage is a contract. And it's not just all fun and games. I need to protect my kids. And Shaeeda tells production in no uncertain terms she's again very pissed off because instead of addressing the issue in hand, i.e. your wife came round to our home and treated me semi-disrespectfully, he took it as an opportunity to browbeat her again with regard to this prenup. Guys, I don't know why he couldn't just be honest and let Shaeeda know, yes, I asked my ex-wife to talk to you about it. Or even, I spoke to my ex-wife about it, and I can't believe she's taken it upon herself to talk to you. But because he was so mute, it absolutely tells me he knew all about it before. In fact, the whole thing was of his design. So do I think his ex-wife has a right to be interested in what he's going to sign to Shaeeda? Yes, 100%. She needs to protect her kids. She needs to ensure their university is paid for, and they get a fair share of whatever Bilal leaves when he finally leaves this earth. But the truth be told, if either one of you had the brains you were born with, you would have put some of Bilal's money into a trust for the kids, which when they become 18 or 21 or 26, whatever you want to set the age at, that trust becomes viable. As you know, I studied law, so I know a little bit about this. But Bilal's ex should have ensured that her kids' money was ring-fenced when they got divorced. Only an idiot leaves all the money in Bilal's hands and then crosses their fingers and hopes for the best, that Bilal's going to do the right thing for their kids at a later date. As things currently stand, yes, it would seem that he's an upstanding guy in that regard, and he would do the best by them, but life takes crazy turns. Tomorrow he could have a massive stroke, be semi-incapacitated, and be coerced by a current partner into signing things over to her. For instance, a prenup now won't help you in that regard. You needed to get a trust for your kids to ring-fence their money as part of your divorce settlement. You've kind of missed the boat. You're now relying on Shaeeda to sign this prenup and relying on Bilal to have the right things in the prenup to protect your kids. It's too little, too late. But anyway, back to the show. Bilal lectures Shaeeda for another few minutes on why it's reasonable to sign this contract, and she as ever looks extremely dubious. So the next time we see this couple, they're at home and Bilal lets Shaeeda know that he wants to talk about the prenup. And finally, Bilal gives Shaeeda a hard copy. She won't be just told about it, as you first hoped, and then shown it on a tiny little mobile phone screen, as was your next endeavour. She wants to pore over it properly, and whilst you're still not advocating that she gets legal advice, which you know is exactly what she should be doing to protect her own interests, you have given her a hard copy, which is definitely a step in the right direction. But Shaeeda wastes no time in telling Bilal, I don't want to sign this prenup, and even though I'm really upset about it, you still want me to sign. Yes, Shaeeda, he does. He still needs to protect his children. Both he and his ex-wife failed to set up a trust when they first got divorced, and so now they want to create a document that ring-fences some money for his kids. And on that, I completely agree with them. However, as she goes on to point out, it's always the more moneyed spouse that wants a prenup, and this prenup is not fair. And Bilal said, how is it not fair? Everything that I had before I met you, I get to keep, and then everything that we have when we're together, we split 50-50. And to many of you, that may seem like completely fair and completely okay, but when you scratch beneath the surface, you realise just how skewed and just how unfair this agreement is. Shaeeda pointed out that whether it's 1 year, 5 years or 25 years that they split up, nothing protects her at all. He gets to keep everything and she only splits 50-50 what she makes. And I've been reading Twitter and Insta and so on with regard to this, and everybody seems to think this is entirely fair, and I'm going to explain to you now why it isn't. Not every business is the same. Bilal has bricks and mortar. He owns houses, and that's the source of his wealth. Shaeeda's wealth is a lot less tangible, but no less valid. So what she brings to the table is her online presence, her knowledge and her competency in yoga, and all of these things go up to make what we call her brand, which when I look at it, combined with obviously her beauty, which is just lucky for her and God-given, it's actually a tangible asset. And let's not forget the fact that she had a yoga studio and in fact a very thriving business back in Trinidad. She's left all of that. So she's left her clients, she's left all the advertising that she's done, and the main thing, she's left her great reputation as a yogi behind, and now she's starting from scratch. Bilal doesn't want to acknowledge that she has left is worth anything. But even though it's not as physically tangible as bricks and mortar, it still is something. Because she left Trinidad to move to America to be with him, she's now lost that something, and in some small way that should be compensated. And with this agreement, it isn't compensated at all, or even acknowledged. And on top of that, it doesn't mention in any way any kids that she might have with Bilal. And of course, that needs to be considered. And then there's one final consideration, and that's the fact that if she has kids with Bilal and she's a stay-at-home mum, how will she be financially compensated for that under the current agreement? She won't be. So while she's busy incubating, delivering, nurturing and bringing up Bilal's offspring, not to mention washing and ironing his shirts, making him dinner and keeping the house. Oh, and we mustn't forget mixing up the big spoons and the little spoons. Under the current agreement, all of this will be done gratis. And therefore, under the current agreement, her business isn't thriving and she has 50% of nothing to gain. Bilal's businesses, which predate her, whilst I agree should be more or less solely his, she will have an input into those businesses. So let's imagine this. He has a limited company, say 5 properties at the moment. If he adds another 3 properties whilst he's married to Shaeeda, she won't get a penny of those because they're all still under the umbrella of his previous limited company. Meanwhile, she might make a multi-million yoga brand with yoga wear and a massive online influence, and 50% of that will be Bilal's. Why should he have 50% when some of the skills that she's bringing to this business already, she already has, just like the properties that Bilal already owns? So it's not as cut and dried as you might imagine. If she were 18 and never worked a day in her life, and Bilal had to pay for her to train as a yogi, and she had no knowledge of how to run a yoga studio, get clients, maintain clients, build a client base, and be an online influencer, then I'd say, okay, well maybe if he fronts up the money, it's 50-50. But that's not the case. However, her assertion that she should be able to have 100% of the money that she earns from whatever endeavour she does, I don't think is correct either. If Bilal's fronting up the money and Bilal's helping her to market it or giving her money to market it, then he should have some percentage, which I guess they need to discuss together. Whether it's 50%, I wouldn't be having that, not for 1 second, but I don't know, maybe 20-25% would be fair. And then Bilal deviated once more into telling outright lies. And he asked the following.
Let me ask you this. Do you ever plan on cheating on me?
Absolutely not, no.
Do you ever plan on divorcing me?
No.
Okay, well, this right here doesn't matter. All this means is that if you go back on your word or what you just said to me, that's the only reason why this right here will take an effect.
Bilal, stop chatting shit for a living. Please stop. The prenup says, if we divorce, here's what happens. So you may cheat on her. You may just have irreconcilable differences. And if that happens, that prenup kicks into action. So please don't tell lies. Don't put it all onto her. that it's all in your hands, as long as you don't finish with me, everything's fine. Imagine you still continue to act like a see you next Tuesday, which you've done thus far. Do you think she's going to put up with that for 40 years? Course she bloody isn't. At one point she's going to be shaken to her senses and leave you ass, like the last two wives did. And at that point, that prenup kicks in, so let's not and say we did. But as she's explaining to him that she wants 100% of her business, Bilal's shaking his head, and he said, I have 2 children to protect, and I want to make sure that you can't take me for everything I got. I want you to see it from that standpoint. And Bilal, I'm sure she does. I don't think she wants to take any money from your kids, or I certainly hope she doesn't. However, the 2 kids you've already got are no more important than the kids you're about to have with her. So why shouldn't they appear in this prenup? Give me one reason. Bilal, not 1 but 2 ex-wives have left you. Regardless of your money and your alleged romanticism, they've seen fit to kick your black ass to the curb. Therefore, it's not that surprising to me if it happens one more time. The Yelp reviews are in. The TripAdvisor has been read. You're not the greatest of husbands, and the only one who doesn't know it is Shaeeda. But she will in time, and that's why you need this prenup, because you know it's unlikely to be forever. So finally, Shaeeda gets legal advice on this prenup, but surprisingly, the lawyer said that the contract was useful. Guys, he was able to wipe his bottom with it in the great 2020 toilet roll shortage. And he tells Shaeeda the following.
Wants me to sign. I just want to know if the contract is fair when it comes to me as well.
I think there are maybe a few things that I thought were questionable.
Is this the type of contract that you would allow your daughter to sign?
I would not let you sign it.
And this for me in a nutshell encapsulates everything I think is wrong with this prenup. It's not the fact it exists. It's not even really the fact that Bilal sprung it upon Shaeeda. My main problem with this is the fact that Bilal has gone to his lawyer on his own, got his own interests sorted, and is actively trying to convince Shaeeda that it's good for both of us. And now with the help of the worldwide internet is trying to reframe Shaeeda as a gold digger. He cleverly mixes truth with lies to kind of bolster his case. So Shaeeda always lets herself down when she says, I want a Cinderella story, I want a fairy tale. Oh Shaeeda, grow the F up. Nothing is like a Cinderella story, especially when you're nearly 40 and he's in his mid-40s. And so when he says this is a business agreement, of course he's completely correct. But what he fails to mention is this is a business agreement which I've had written up with my lawyers, and you're completely unrepresented, and any future kids that we have aren't in this agreement. And I'm treating you, for the purposes of this agreement, as if you've never had a business before, as if you're absolutely brand new, and everything you ever do in the future is because of me, the big I am, the big Bilal. And guys, it's pissing me off. Her lawyer said in no uncertain terms he would not let his daughter sign it. He thinks it's one-sided. And there's no doubt in my mind that it is. And so Shaeeda said, well, if I make changes to this agreement, are you going to sign it? And Bilal said, I'll consider it. And that's where we end things for this week. So, in summary, it's my belief that Bilal was going to try and slide this one under Shaeeda's nose and get away with having the complete upper hand financially in this relationship. As we know, Bilal's a man of means, but he's trying to treat Shaeeda as if she's just nothing. He's trying to make a meal of the fact that if I put up money for your business to start, why shouldn't I get 50%? Because Bilal, you're just replacing what she's left to be with you. That's why. It's very simple to me. He thinks whatever business she has would have come from him. And that's a complete dismissal of her whole life to date. And guys, I can be the most dismissive person in the world when I want to be, but that's quite audacious, even for me. He's had his lawyer draft up this document, serving only his interest. And when he couldn't convince Shaeeda to sign himself, he sent his attack dog round. And she felt just as miserably as he did. And Bilal says that he trusts in God's plan. Oh really, Bilal? Was it God's plan to create a scam of a prenup? Was it also God's plan to try and deny Shaeeda legal counsel? Was it also God's plan for you to go to Trinidad and find yourself a stunning girl and punch well above your weight No, of course it wasn't. It was all your plan. And every time he speaks about this prenup, he's got a new way of reframing it to try and suggest that all is well and all he's doing is protecting the money he's already earned. And he mentions not the money that is yet to be earned, and the children, of course, that is yet to have. And when he was arguing with her about it a few weeks ago, he said, "I'm not perfect. We know you're not, Bilal, but at least try and work your way up to being, well, substandard. That might be a start." So guys, let me know in comments down below, what's your take on the whole issue of this prenup? Do you think, as I do, that Bilal was trying a shady one too, hoping she wouldn't get legal counsel and hoping he could slide it underneath her nose without her realising? Or do you think she should just sign it no matter what? And what do you make of Shaeeda? I can't help but think she always lets herself down when she says, "I want a fairy tale," because it gives Bilal the opportunity to say a marriage is a contract. We have to protect ourselves. And of course he's right in that, but he's only protecting himself. He hasn't given a second thought to her. And that's what I find unconscionable. And finally, what do you think to her plan of having 100% of her business? Again, I do think it's unreasonable. I don't think he should have 50-50 because that doesn't take into account whatever she had before, but he should get some sort of percentage. I'm thinking 20-25. So yes, let me know what you think in comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks guys so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online and I bid you good day.